The night before my 65th birthday, my deceased wife came to me in a dream and whispered urgently, "Don't wear the shirt from Cole and Tessa Joshua. Please don't wear that shirt." I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. It was true. My son Cole and his wife Tessa had recently given me a beautiful dress shirt for my birthday celebration. When I examined it closely the next day, I discovered something that made my heart stop. Before we dive deeper into this chilling story, I'm curious. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city and the time in the comments below. I'd love to know how many of you out there have learned to trust those mysterious feelings that something just isn't right. 3:17 in the morning. The digital clock's red glow pierced through darkness as I jolted awake, gasping like I'd been underwater. My pajamas stuck to my back, drenched in cold sweat, despite Austin's comfortable spring night. Savannah had been standing at the foot of our bed, as vivid as the day we married 43 years ago. Her silver hair shimmered in the moonlight, and those warm brown eyes that had guided me through decades now burned with desperate urgency. "Joshua," she'd said in that familiar Texas drawl, "you listen to me now. Don't wear that shirt Cole and Tessa brought you. Do you hear me, honey? Don't you dare put on that blue dress shirt." 3 times she'd repeated those words, each time more insistent before fading into shadows like morning mist. I sat up, trembling hands running through my gray hair. The house creaked around me with familiar sounds. 28 years in this Westlake neighborhood, yet tonight everything felt different. Through the window, the Hendersons' porch light cast eerie shadows across their lawn. 2 weeks ago, Cole and Tessa had arrived for Sunday dinner with their gift. The presentation was elaborate. Expensive department store box, tissue paper, the works. My daughter-in-law had been unusually animated, her blonde hair perfect designer handbag clutched like armor. "Dad, this is for your big day," Cole had announced, green eyes bright with what I'd thought was genuine affection. The shirt was stunning, deep navy blue with subtle pinstripes, Egyptian cotton that felt like silk. Tessa picked it out special. She said it would bring out your eyes. Tessa had nodded enthusiastically, manicured hands gesturing. "We wanted something really special, Joshua. 65 is a milestone. You'll look so distinguished at the party." Now in the pre-dawn darkness, their insistence seemed different. Why had Tessa been so specific about the fabric, the fit, how it would photograph under restaurant lighting? Why had Cole mentioned 3 separate times that I absolutely must wear it to tomorrow's celebration at the Riverside Grill? I padded to the kitchen, passing family photos lining the hallway. Cole's graduation, his wedding to Tessa 5 years ago, holidays spanning decades of what I'd believed was genuine happiness. At the sink, I filled a glass with water, the cool liquid doing nothing for the metallic taste of fear in my mouth. 47 years of marriage had taught me to trust Savannah's instincts, even when they defied logic. She'd warned me about business partners who later embezzled funds, about neighbors whose friendly facades hid darker intentions, about investments that seemed too good to be true. But this was our son. Outside, Austin began its slow awakening. Garbage trucks rumbled in the distance, early commuters started their engines. Normal sounds of a normal Tuesday morning, yet nothing felt normal anymore. Savannah's voice echoed with crystalline clarity, carrying the same conviction that had guided every major family decision we'd ever made together. Even in death, she was trying to protect me. When morning came, I tried to push the dream away, but Savannah's voice kept echoing in my mind as I made my way to the kitchen. The aroma of coffee and scrambled eggs filled our kitchen as Cole and Tessa prepared what they called a perfect birthday breakfast. My son moved between stove and counter, while Tessa arranged orange juice in crystal glasses, insisting on our best tableware. "Happy birthday, Dad." Cole set Eggs Benedict before me with a flourish. 65 years young today. Tessa perched on her chair, designer workout clothes, immaculate despite the early hour. Her blue eyes studied my every expression. We wanted to make this morning special before tonight's celebration. I forced a smile, though Savannah's warning still echoed in my mind. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Nonsense." Cole waved off my protest, settling into his chair. "Speaking of tonight," his expression grew serious, almost urgent. "Dad, you absolutely must wear that blue dress shirt we picked out. It's perfect for your big day." Something in his tone made my fork pause. There was an insistence there, a pressure that felt completely wrong coming from my son. Tessa leaned forward, manicured fingers drumming against the oak table. "You did try it on, didn't you, Joshua? We had it tailored specifically. The color will photograph beautifully under the restaurant's lighting." I haven't had a chance yet, I replied, carefully watching their reactions. Cole's jaw tightened while Tessa's smile seemed to freeze. Well, you should definitely do that today. She pressed her voice, carrying a note I couldn't identify. We want everything absolutely perfect for tonight. The shirt, the celebration, everything. My phone buzzed, displaying Jade's name. I welcomed the interruption. Hey, sweetheart, I answered, stepping toward the window. Happy birthday? Daddy? Jade's warm voice eased some tension in my chest. We're 20 minutes out. Leo's been asking about Grandpa's birthday cake since we left. I chuckled, picturing my 4-year-old grandson. Tell him Grandpa can't wait to see him, too. Knox wanted me to ask about dress code for tonight. Should he wear a suit? Business casual should be fine. As I hung up, I caught Cole and Tessa exchanging a look. Brief, barely a second, but something passed between them that made my stomach clench. Everything all right with Jade? Cole asked, tone carefully casual. She's fine. They'll be here soon. I studied my son's face. When had those worry lines appeared around his eyes? When had his smile started looking so forced? Tessa cleared her throat. Joshua, about that shirt? It really would mean a lot if you wore it tonight. We put so much thought into choosing it, and Cole was so excited about surprising you. There it was again. That underlying pressure, that insistence feeling more like a demand than a request. In 35 years of being Cole's father, I'd never heard him speak with such urgency about something as simple as clothing. I remembered the Sunday they'd presented the gift, how Tessa had insisted on staying while I opened it, watching my reaction with sharp eyes. How Cole had repeated 3 times that I simply had to wear it. Of course, I heard myself saying, though every instinct screamed warnings. I'm sure it'll be perfect. Cole's shoulders visibly relaxed, and Tessa's smile finally reached her eyes. They finished breakfast with renewed chatter about evening plans, restaurant reservations, the guest list. Normal conversation that should have felt comfortable, but instead left me feeling like I was watching actors perform a rehearsed scene. After Cole and Tessa left for work, the house fell silent, and that's when Savannah's warning began to feel less like a dream and more like a premonition. The afternoon stretched endlessly, each tick of the grandfather clock echoing through the empty house. Jade wouldn't arrive until 6, and the birthday celebration wasn't until 7. Hours of solitude filled with nothing but Savannah's persistent warning. I tried reading the Austin American Statesman, but the words blurred meaninglessly. My mind kept circling back to breakfast, to the strange intensity in Cole's voice when he'd insisted I wear that particular shirt. By 3 o'clock, I couldn't stand it anymore. The walk to our master bedroom felt longer than usual. Our walk-in closet still smelled faintly of Savannah's lavender sachets, a ghost of comfort that today only sharpened my unease. The shirt hung where I'd left it 2 weeks ago, protected by a clear garment bag between my Sunday suit and navy blazer. Even through the plastic, the deep blue fabric shimmered, with quality subtle pinstripes catching light from the overhead fixture. I unzipped the bag, carefully recognizing the weight of expensive Egyptian cotton. This was easily a $300 shirt, maybe more. The kind of extravagant gift that should have filled me with gratitude, not this gnawing anxiety. Carrying it to the window where afternoon sunlight streamed through, I examined it closely. The craftsmanship was flawless. Perfectly aligned seams, mother-of-pearl buttons, French cuffs, speaking of old-world elegance. Everything screamed sophistication and thoughtful selection. So why did looking at it make my skin crawl? I spread the shirt across our king-sized bed, the same bed where Savannah had appeared hours earlier. The fabric lay smooth and pristine, showing no signs of tampering. Yet something felt wrong. Methodically, I ran my hands along the shirt's surface, starting with the shoulders and working down. The fabric felt consistent weight, even throughout the body and sleeves. But when my fingers reached the collar area, I paused. There was something different there, not visible but unmistakable to touch. A slight thickness, as if extra material had been sewn between the outer fabric and inner lining. Subtle, barely noticeable unless you were specifically looking, but definitely present. My heart began pounding as I examined the area more carefully. The collar looked normal. Stitching appeared professional and undisturbed. Yet that extra thickness remained concentrated in a small section just behind where the collar would rest against my neck. I stood back, staring at the innocent-looking garment. Was I losing my mind? Was grief and age making me paranoid? About a perfectly normal dress shirt, Cole was my son, my flesh and blood. Tessa had never shown me anything but respect and affection. But Savannah's voice whispered through my memory with absolute clarity, "Don't wear that shirt." In 47 years of marriage, my wife had never steered me wrong. Not once. She'd warned me about contractors trying to overcharge us, insisted I get second opinions on medical treatments, convinced me to avoid business partnerships that would have cost my retirement savings. Savannah had possessed intuition that bordered on supernatural, an ability to sense danger I'd learned to trust completely. Even death, it seemed, hadn't diminished that gift. Standing in our bedroom, surrounded by 43 years of shared memories, I made my decision. If there was even the slightest chance something was wrong with this shirt, I had to know. My hands trembled as I reached for the sewing scissors in Savannah's old sewing box. If I was wrong, I'd ruin Cole's expensive gift. But if I was right, the small sewing scissors felt impossibly heavy in my trembling hands as I positioned them against the shirt's collar. Savannah's old Singer's sewing box sat open beside me on the bed, its contents scattered like surgical instruments, thread spools measuring tape, the tiny silver thimble she'd worn smooth with decades of use. I took a steadying breath and made the first cut. The fabric parted easily under the sharp blade, revealing the shirt's inner construction. At first, everything looked normal. Standard interfacing, professional stitching, quality materials throughout. But as I carefully widened the small opening, something unexpected tumbled out. Fine white powder, delicate as confectioner's sugar, spilled across our dark blue bedspread in a thin stream. I jerked back instinctively, the scissors clattering to the hardwood floor as more of the substance continued to fall from the hidden pocket I'd inadvertently opened. For a moment I could only stare. The powder was odorless, almost weightless, settling into the fabric's weave like freshly fallen snow. There was perhaps a tablespoon's worth, maybe less, but its presence in my birthday gift sent ice water through my veins. This wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately sewn this substance into the collar of my shirt, concealing it so expertly that even a careful examination hadn't revealed its presence. Only Savannah's warning had led me to this discovery. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, scrolling through contacts, until I found the name I needed. Doctor. Wren Hunt had been my friend since college, a brilliant chemist who'd spent 30 years analyzing everything from industrial compounds to pharmaceutical ingredients. If anyone could tell me what this powder was, it would be Wren. "Joshua?" His voice carried surprise when he answered. "This is unexpected. How are you holding up?" "Wren, I need your help." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I found something, and I think someone's trying to hurt me." The line went quiet for a moment. When Wren spoke again, his tone had shifted to professional concern. "What kind of something?" "White powder. Fine, like flour or cornstarch. It was sewn into a shirt collar, hidden where no one would find it unless they were specifically looking." "Jesus, Joshua. Don't touch it anymore. Don't even breathe near it until we know what it is. Can you get a sample to my lab? How much do you need?" "Just a pinch sealed in a plastic bag. But Joshua..." His voice carried a weight that made my stomach clench. "Be extremely careful handling it. If someone went to the trouble of hiding powder in clothing, it's not baby powder." The drive to Wren's laboratory at the University of Texas felt endless, though the clock on my dashboard showed only 15 minutes had passed. I'd carefully collected a small sample using a plastic spoon, sealing it in a Ziploc bag while holding my breath. The rest of the powder remained scattered across our bedspread. Evidence of what I was beginning to understand might be an attempt on my life. Wren met me at the building's side entrance, his usually cheerful demeanor replaced by grim professionalism. At 63, he still maintained the focused intensity that had made him one of the Southwest's most respected forensic chemists. "Let me see it," he said without preamble, leading me through sterile hallways to his private laboratory. I handed over the sample, watching as he examined it under a magnifying glass before transferring a tiny portion to a glass slide. The next 30 minutes felt like hours as he worked with various instruments, occasionally muttering to himself or making notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally, he looked up from his microscope, his face pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lighting. "Joshua," he said quietly, "this is poison. Contact poison specifically designed to be absorbed through the skin when mixed with perspiration and body heat." The words hit me like physical blows. "What would it do?" "Worn against your neck for several hours, especially during physical activity or emotional stress. Like a birthday party where you'd be moving around, talking, laughing, maybe dancing. It would cause gradual absorption. First you'd feel slightly dizzy, maybe nauseous. Your heart rate would increase. Within a few hours, He paused, clearly struggling with what he had to tell me. Within a few hours, what? Cardiac arrest. It would look completely natural. A 65-year-old man having a heart attack during his birthday celebration. No one would question it, especially if you'd been drinking wine, eating rich food, experiencing the normal excitement of a party. As Ren explained how the poison would have killed me slowly during the party, making it look like a heart attack, one thought consumed me. My own son wanted me dead. Ren didn't waste time with comfort. He pulled out his phone and dialed from memory. Cruz, it's Ren Hunt. I need you at my lab immediately. Attempted murder. Poison. The victim is sitting right here. 20 minutes later, Detective Cruzvale walked through the laboratory doors with measured steps. Younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with sharp brown eyes and focused attention that explained why Ren had called him first. Mr. Ford, he said, extending a firm handshake, before we go further, I need you to know your son Cole has been on our radar for 3 months. The words hit like a second punch. What do you mean? Cruz settled across from me, pulling out a notebook. Financial Crimes has been tracking a cryptocurrency scam that cost Austin investors over $15 million. Your son lost $2.5 million in that scheme. $2.5 million. I stared, unable to process it. Cole doesn't have that kind of money. He borrowed it from very dangerous people, the kind who don't accept apologies as payment. My mind reeled. Cole had never mentioned troubles, never asked for help. How long? Initial investment 8 months ago. When the Bitcoin venture proved fraudulent, his creditors gave him 6 months to repay. That deadline passed 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, when Cole and Tessa had given me the shirt. Detective, I have life insurance. $3 million. Cruz nodded grimly. We know. Cole's the primary beneficiary. Your daughter gets less, but the bulk goes to your son. The pieces fell into sickening place. My birthday celebration publicly attended. The insistence on that specific shirt. If the poison had worked, I would have collapsed at the Riverside Grill, surrounded by witnesses to my apparent good health moments before my heart attack. What about Tessa? Cruz's expression darkened. That's where this gets interesting. Tessa Morrison has a record. Insurance fraud in Oklahoma 5 years ago. Charges dropped, insufficient evidence, but the pattern fits. She married an older man, convinced him to increase life insurance, and 6 months later, he died in an apparent accidental fall. She killed someone before. We could never prove it. Looked accidental, she was convincing as the grieving widow. But when we investigated your son's troubles, her name triggered red flags. I thought about Tessa's behavior that morning, her nervous energy, how she'd watched my every reaction discussing the shirt. Had she suggested this plan? Had Cole been desperate enough to agree to murdering his father? Mr. Ford, we believe your daughter-in-law is the mastermind. Your son's in serious trouble, probably terrified, but Tessa has experience with this scheme. She likely convinced him it was the only way out. So what now? Cruz leaned forward. We catch them in the act. You'll attend your birthday party tonight exactly as planned. But instead of wearing their poisoned shirt, wear something else. When they realize their plan failed, they'll likely panic and reveal themselves. You want me as bait? You'll be completely safe. Undercover officers will be positioned throughout the restaurant. The moment they show suspicious behavior, we move in. I sat in that laboratory surrounded by tools that had just saved my life, trying to imagine facing my son across a dinner table, knowing he'd planned to watch me die. Detective Vale laid out the plan I would attend my birthday party, as scheduled, but wearing a different shirt. When Cole and Tessa realized their plan had failed, they would likely panic and reveal themselves. By 5:30, Detective Cruz's plan was in motion. 3 undercover officers would blend into the Riverside Grill's evening crowd, one posing as a business diner, another as a celebrating couple, the third at the bar. Each had clear sightlines to our table and radio contact with Cruz monitoring from the parking lot. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting a simple white dress shirt I'd owned for years. It felt strange wearing something so familiar for what should have been special, but the contrast would be unmistakable. Cole and Tessa had been very specific about the blue shirt. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 o'clock, followed by little feet racing across hardwood floors. Grandpa, Grandpa. Leo's voice echoed with pure 4-year-old joy. I scooped him into a hug that felt more precious than ever. There's my favorite grandson, I said, holding him tight. I helped Mommy pick your present, Leo announced proudly. It's a surprise, but it's really, really good. Jade appeared, her auburn hair catching evening light. Happy birthday, Dad, she said, embracing me with the kind of hug that conveyed everything words couldn't. Knox followed with a wrapped package and easy smile. Looking sharp, Joshua. Ready for the big celebration? The drive to the Riverside Grill felt surreal. Leo chattered about birthday cake while Jade discussed seating arrangements. Normal family conversation that should have filled me with contentment instead felt like voices from another life. The restaurant buzzed with evening energy. Our private dining room was decorated with balloons and flowers, a happy 65th birthday banner across one wall. Cole and Tessa arrived shortly after us, both impeccably dressed, with bright smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Cole wore charcoal gray, Tessa a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most monthly salaries. Dad! Cole's embrace felt normal, familiar. For a moment I almost convinced myself Detective Cruz had made some terrible mistake. Then his eyes found my shirt. The change was subtle, but unmistakable. Confusion followed by something like panic. Dad, he said carefully, where's the blue shirt, the one Tessa and I picked out? Oh, that, I replied lightly. I decided to go with something more comfortable. You know how I am with new clothes. Tessa stepped forward, her smile now painted on. But Joshua, we chose that shirt specifically for tonight. The color, the fit, everything was perfect for photographs. I'm sure this will photograph just fine, I said, watching as she exchanged a worried glance with Cole. More guests arrived, colleagues, neighbors, old friends who'd known Savannah and me for decades. The room filled with laughter and conversation, the kind of celebration that should have marked a milestone birthday. But I watched Cole and Tessa instead. They stood near the windows, engaged in increasingly urgent, whispered conversation. Tessa's hands moved expressively, her agitation clear in every gesture. Cole kept running fingers through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. Everything all right? I asked, approaching them during a lull in greetings. Of course, Dad, Cole replied too quickly. Just discussing the evening schedule. Tessa's laugh sounded forced. We want everything perfect for your special day. As dinner service began, their anxiety became impossible to hide. Tessa barely touched her salmon, constantly checking her phone. Cole excused himself twice for business calls, returning each time more agitated. The undercover officers played their roles perfectly. The business dinner patron occasionally glanced our way while reviewing documents. The anniversary couple shared quiet conversation and wine. The solo diner at the bar seemed absorbed in his phone but positioned to see everything. As the party continued and more guests arrived, I watched my son and daughter-in-law grow increasingly agitated. It was time to end this charade. The moment came during dessert, as our server was distributing slices of the chocolate birthday cake Leo had helped choose. The room buzzed with comfortable conversation guests sharing stories about my construction company days and reminiscing about Savannah. It was exactly the kind of warm family celebration that should have marked this milestone. Instead, I was about to destroy it all. I stood slowly tapping my wine glass with a fork until the conversations died down. 23 faces turned toward me expectantly. Friends, neighbors, colleagues who'd come to celebrate what they believed was simply a man's 65th birthday. Thank you all for being here tonight. I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Your presence means more to me than you know, especially since losing Savannah. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the room. At the far end of the table, Cole and Tessa sat, frozen their faces, masks of forced attention. And I had planned to give a different speech tonight. I continued meeting my son's eyes across the room. Something about gratitude and family, about the blessings of reaching this age surrounded by people I love. Cole's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Tessa's knuckles were white where she gripped her napkin. But tonight I discovered something that changed everything. I paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the suddenly silent room. I discovered that my son and daughter-in-law tried to murder me. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Gasps echoed through the dining room chairs, scraped against hardwood floors as guests turned to stare at Cole and Tessa. Someone, I think it was our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, actually screamed. Dad, what are you talking about? Cole shot to his feet, his face flushing red. Have you lost your mind? This is ridiculous. Is it? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small plastic bag containing the white powder Wren had analyzed. This is contact poison coal. It was sewn into the collar of that blue dress shirt you and Tessa insisted I wear tonight. Tessa had gone completely pale, her designer makeup, unable to hide the terror in her eyes. Joshua, you're obviously confused. Maybe we should get you to a doctor. The plan was simple. I continued, ignoring her protests. I would wear the poison shirt to my birthday party. The substance would absorb through my skin over the course of the evening, causing what would appear to be a natural heart attack. A 65-year-old man celebrating with rich food and wine getting excited, no one would question it. This is insane. Cole's voice cracked with desperation. Dad, you're having some kind of breakdown. We would never... $2.5 million, Cole. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. That's how much you lost in that cryptocurrency scam. That's how much you owe to people who don't accept apologies as payment. The color drained from my son's face. Around the room, our guests sat in stunned silence, some covering their mouths in horror, others staring in disbelief. Ian, $3 million, I continued relentlessly, is exactly how much my life insurance policy is worth. With me dead, you could pay your debts and still have money left over. That's when Tessa broke. It wasn't supposed to happen like this? She screamed, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. Cole was going to die. They were going to kill him if he didn't pay. What choice did we have? Tessa shut up. Cole lunged toward her, but it was too late. It was my idea. Okay, she sobbed, her composure completely shattered. I knew how to do it. I'd done it before. It would have looked natural. No one would have suspected anything. We were desperate. That's when Detective Cruz and his officers entered the dining room, their badges clearly visible as they moved with practiced efficiency toward Cole and Tessa. Cole Ford. Tessa Ford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder, Cruz announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. Cole didn't resist as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, but his eyes never left mine. When the metal secured his hands behind his back, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face and whispered, Dad, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. 3 months later, I sat in Travis County Courthouse, watching my son receive his sentence. The judge's words echoed, Cole Ford, 15 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Tessa Ford, 20 years as the primary architect of this conspiracy. Cole turned to look at me before the bailiff led him away. His orange jumpsuit hung loose. He'd lost weight during the legal proceedings. Our eyes met, and I saw the little boy who used to run to me when he scraped his knee, who'd built model airplanes at our kitchen table. Tessa showed no vulnerability. She kept her chin-high blonde hair perfectly styled, despite facing 2 decades in prison, maintaining the cold composure that had nearly cost me my life. The weeks following were the darkest since losing Savannah. Jade moved in temporarily with Knox and Leo taking leave from her nursing job. Dad, you can't blame yourself, she said one evening as we watched Leo chase fireflies. Cole made his choices. Tessa manipulated him, but he still chose to go along. I knew she was right intellectually, but kept circling back to the same questions. Where had I failed as a father? How had I missed the signs? 6 months after sentencing, I decided to visit Cole in prison. The Huntsville unit was concrete walls, razor wire, and institutional grimness. Cole looked older when they brought him to the visiting room, gray showing at his temples. Dad, he whispered, I didn't think you'd come. I wasn't sure I would either, I admitted. After minutes of silence, Cole began speaking in a rush, as if he'd been holding back for months. It was never supposed to happen. I was so scared, Dad. These people weren't just threatening me. They knew where Jade lived, where Leo went to preschool. They had pictures. He told me about the cryptocurrency investment, the smooth-talking broker who'd convinced him to leverage everything. When the scheme collapsed, he owed money to people who collected debts with violence. Tessa said she knew a way out. She told me about her first husband, how it had worked before. She made it sound so simple, so clean. You'd just go to sleep at the party. But it would have been murder, Cole, I said quietly. Your father's murder. Looking at this broken man who'd once been my pride, I felt anger loosen, replaced by pity. Cole, I said, reaching across to touch his hand, I forgive you. He looked up with red-rimmed eyes. How can you possibly forgive me? Because you're still my son. Because forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I choose to carry. 2 weeks later, I drove to Austin Memorial Gardens, where Savannah rested. I brought white roses and sat on our bench. Thank you, I said aloud. Thank you for the warning. Thank you for saving me. A gentle breeze stirred the oak trees, and for a moment I could have sworn I felt her hand on my shoulder. Standing at Savannah's grave 6 months later, I finally understood that love sometimes means protecting those we care about, even from beyond. Today, 2 years later, I live in a small house just 10 minutes from Jade's family. Every Sunday, Leo runs through my front door with the same boundless energy calling, "Grandpa," as he shows me his latest drawings or tells me about his adventures at school. These moments have become my anchor, reminding me that life continues, that love endures even after betrayal tries to destroy it. Looking back on this true story, I realize how dangerously naive I was. For 65 years, I believed that family meant safety, that blood ties guaranteed loyalty. I trusted without question, loved without boundaries, and nearly died because of it. Don't be like me. Don't assume that sharing DNA means sharing values. Even those closest to us can harbor darkness we never imagined. The hardest lesson I learned is that sometimes the people who know us best are the ones most capable of hurting us. They know our weaknesses, our routines, our blind spots. Cole knew I would never suspect him. Tessa knew I would wear whatever gift they gave me because that's who I am, a man who trusts his family completely. But here's what I want you to understand from these grandpa stories. Betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. Yes, it changes you forever. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the shadows that can hide behind familiar faces, but I haven't let it make me bitter or closed off from love. God has a way of protecting us even when we can't protect ourselves. Savannah's warning came from beyond this world, a reminder that love transcends death, and that we're never truly alone in our darkest moments. That supernatural intervention saved my life and taught me that faith and intuition often speak louder than logic. If you're living through your own betrayal right now, know this healing is possible. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't about excusing what they did. It's about refusing to carry their poison in your heart. Cole will serve his time, and I've made my peace with that, but I won't let his choices steal my remaining years or my capacity to love. These grandpa stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, lessons, reminders that life can change in an instant. This true story nearly ended with my death, but instead became a testament to survival, to the power of trusting your instincts, and to the mysterious ways love protects us. Trust your dreams, listen to your gut, and remember that sometimes the most important true story you'll ever hear is the one that teaches you to question everything, even family. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Share your own experiences with family betrayal or supernatural warnings. Your story might save someone else's life. And if these grandpa stories resonate with you, please subscribe to Sweet Revenge for more powerful true stories that remind us all how precious and fragile life really is.